And he also has a job on the side. Wow. An honor to have amongst us and be joined by Amarjeet Singh Batra. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the Managing Director of the leading Spotify India. He has been the founder of OLX India, the company that revolutionized the way we traded online. He has changed our vocabulary forever. It's an honor yet again. This way, this time, this is the only panel I want to add which reverses our diversity. We celebrate and invite once again Pallavi Singh. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome once again Pallavi Singh, the head of marketing at BMW India.
Thank you, Kulmeet, for responding to my request. So Kulmeet was earlier the head of CEO of Adobe in India. He moved on to Resultix in Singapore, and we stayed in touch, and he was very generous in offering his support for the Women Economic Forum when we met last at one of the editions. So I acted upon the generous offer, and I leveraged it, and I chased him to put up a panel. And in his busy schedule, he's in between, in his transition from Delhi to Singapore, but he kept his word, as a gentleman will, and he curated this wonderful panel for us. Ravi ji, we are very, very grateful for your support and your presence. You are leading in a tech capacity my favorite airline. We'd love to, really, I mean, we all travel by Vistara, and we love the fact that you have a special assistance for women over there, and it's always my preferred airline. So thank you for this wonderful organization of which you're a part. Pallavi, we had you here earlier with BMW. Maybe we'll discuss about the BMW offline as well. So, and Amarji, thank you so much. You are the MD of Spotify India, and we are very, very keen to have your inputs on a wonderful session.
Great, Harveen. Am I audible enough, Vinayji? Okay. Okay, so firstly, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for all those kind words and the very generous introduction. Thanks a lot. And on behalf of all of us, I think, I just wanted to compliment Harbeen, Vinayji, and the entire team for the amazing work that you're doing with the Women's Economic Forum, not just here. I'm privy to a lot of the communication that Harbeen shares with the kind of stuff that you're doing globally, various countries, etc., the impact that you're making on the women. And it's kudos to all of you, right? So what a fantastic job. The panel has already been introduced. I will say a few more words about each of them. I've known some of them for many, many years, some of them for a couple of years. But it's a very diverse and a very accomplished panel, if I could call it, of people that I'm hosting. So why I say diverse is we've got one of the finest technologists in the world with us here. So I could have said rising star, how far more Ravi will rise. So it's one of the finest technologists. We've got one of the most accomplished marketeers, and I believe Pallavi's already been on the stage before this. We've got one of the finest CEOs in the country with us here, Amar. And a couple of things about each of them. So as you know, Amar is now the managing director for Spotify. And he's also the man that, from inception, built up OLX.com in the country. He actually built the C2C or consumer-to-consumer trade practices in India. So that's what he brought, and that was one of the, I think, one of the finest companies. And then, of course, Amar has moved on with all his charm. He's using his charms, his charisma, and of course his professional learnings to now build Spotify in the country, right? And 18 months, I think. Yeah, 18 months, and he's done a fantastic job already so far. Spotify is all over the news. Pallavi, like we said, marketing director for BMW, has a very august track record. I know she's been with the likes of Harley for several years. She was with MG Motors, where I last met her, and now, of course, with BMW. And I think one of the biggest differentiators in the few times that I met her is her creativity. combined with her understanding of business and her understanding of the customer that she interacts with. And that's huge in today's world. She's also an avid biker and a lot of other adventure activities, which we'll open up the house for Pallavi to explain us. But that's so amazing. And the way I say it is, I think, and the few times that I've met her, she brings in a breath of fresh air to the way marketing is evolving. Okay, so that's Pallavi. Ravi, like I said, so while he's a good friend, I'm extremely jealous of him. And I'll tell you why I'm jealous. So it's not for the fact that he's an Harvard alum, you heard. He's got more than 17 patents to his name, more than 100 global awards that he's won. He's the #1 artificial intelligence leader in Asia, top 10 robotic designers globally, right? It goes on and on. The list goes on and on. It's almost embarrassing. So I don't know how Ravi sits and hears to all of that. But by the way, that's not the reason why I'm jealous of him. I'm jealous of him for one simple reason. 3.5 years, he's lived in one of the most palatial suites at the Leela Hotel here. 3.5 years, guys, right? And he doesn't get tired of it. So that's Ravi for you. So like I said, I think a very accomplished panel here. And the idea of the next 35 to 40 minutes that we have is to open it up, to get under the hood with all these leaders, to understand what makes them tick, successes, failures, their relationship with it. What is it that they are fearful of? What is their crystal ball gazing? How do they talk about the future through their lens? One is a marketeer, one is a technologist, one is a general manager of repute. And of course, we would love to open it up for questions at the end if we have time. I know, and I think it was already introduced, she said it very, very nicely, saying that we've turned it around, the diversity in this panel. I think we are already on a back foot, not having an all-women's panel. But my apologies for it. But there are going to be some fun questions. It's more around leadership and successes, so it's different. And of course, a little bit about work-life balance, since I think that's important for the higher you go. Is that fair? Yes. Wonderful. So let me start with a generic question. Amar, are you ready? Okay, so this is a generic question. We'll go round robin. We'll start with Amar here. But so tell us about your journey, your career journey. Give us a snapshot about, like I said, what is it that makes you tick? How do you view success and failure, Amar, Pallavi, and then Ravi, right? So each of you. Amar, over to you first.
Wow. Yeah, so I actually, I'm from an army. My father was in army, so I've took the normal path of what most people do, engineering and MBA and all that. But I was more of a sportsman and used to love music. And obviously didn't follow the passion on both sides and went into normal. I was in international trade for the first few years of my career. And then I realized it's not working out. That's not the place I want to be. Didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought I would. And then in 2000, I entered the internet in India. It was probably the starting phase of, so it's been 18, 19 years now. Been in the B2B space a bit, then entered into 2003 in Bazi. Bazi was then taken over by eBay. So spent about 5 years with Bazi. And I think there I learned a lot about running internet businesses because eBay was one of the global leaders in e-commerce. And I learned few things about internet businesses which stuck to me for life, and it's kind of still I use this. Things like scalability, low touch, network effects, and how to build a scalable business and so on. So I think that stuck to me, and I think I somehow ended up starting with OLX in India. And that 9.5 years was my first chance to build a company as a first role as a country manager or a CEO or general manager. And I think building the brand from scratch, I built an organization, built a strategy, built a team, built a culture. So I think it ended up with about 600 people. So I worked alone in home for about a couple of years also, like they say, when you're starting up. And this has been an interesting diversion for me because I used to love music and sports, of course. But then when Spotify called up, they wanted to look for an MD in India. I think it was a pretty good fit for me to kind of go into this territory. So I think I learned a lot. I personally feel that on failures, I will probably start with that because people sometimes see the success, they don't see the failures. So I think I would love to talk about failures a bit because I was very lucky. I failed early part of my life a lot, actually. So, and I attribute that to not necessarily about that I was not doing well, but some companies I worked or some things I did actually didn't end up succeeding. But also, as I look back, and I'm a big believer in I think something which Steve Jobs said about connecting the dots, what you do. And he said that you cannot connect the dots going forward. You can only connect the dots going back, from back. So I realized that I think I was not focused enough. I think doing too many things. In sports also, I probably used to play about 10 sports pretty with ease. Never kind of a championed one. And while work also, I didn't have a clear goal in life. I think then I kind of zeroed down my energy, at eBay and so on, found my passion in the internet, marketplaces, something. There, I think it suddenly changed, and I realized that it's not going to be like this, and I started setting some goals for myself. And I think that changed my whole thought process. I also studied a lot. I think in the last 10, 11 years, I don't think I've ever done as much reading as I did in my first 20, 30 years of my life. So I'm a big reader. I read about, I think, literally whatever I can get, most of the time non-fiction. So on failure, I think what I learned out there is that always you can treat them as failures, as opportunities, or you can treat them as crises. I have actually seen that there are three types of failures. One is setbacks. I think I mostly take most things as setbacks, temporary setbacks, because like success, even failure is temporary. It's also sometimes turning around the place and you kind of take a different direction. So I moved into internet through a direction which if I had continued in that, I would never have been where I am today. So I think I was very happy I failed in one direction to be actually entering into a new part of it. But I think I also treat failure as a learning process now because I think you've got to fail. If you're not failing enough, then you are not really this thing. But it's important to succeed more than you fail. Otherwise, it's a bit difficult. So you need to find more successes for yourself and continuously learn. My success thing is about, I think it's very important to say what works for you. And I've seen that you have to continuously renovate or renew your success formula. What worked for me maybe 7, 8, 10 years back is not necessarily working. If I try to copy paste whatever I'm learning and kind of start again doing that, it may not deliver the same result. So success, you need to pick up some first principles from your success all the time so that you can apply those first principles in a new setting, and that's what I do. So I learn, I apply, and I kind of do that. The second is, I think I've realized that on success is that you need to be perseverant. I mean, you have to have patience because sometimes you force your way towards things and you try to think that things will work, but the circumstances are not good enough. So if you have the patience enough, things will fall in place. And a friend of mine recently told me about a very nice thing he used. He says it's called the PPPK. Of this thing. He says, I said, what is that? He says, piche pair ke. So you keep going. So you keep going after the thing. So Indians we are anyway good in follow-ups. I think we keep going after that. So some of that success formula. So I think there are lots of things you learn through it. I'll not take more time.
And Amar, so when does your book come out with all the gyan that you give this audience? I know you're writing a book, right? So when do you actually...
Now you're putting me on the spot. I'm not writing a book, but I've always thought about it, and I think somehow I've not been able to
Look at it. I've pulled it out from the bottom of your heart. And so, Amar, one question. So what is that one single thing, do you think, that makes you tick, right? What's it that energizes you every morning when you wake up?
I think this tick is, I'm saying that there's a connection with Resultix. I think it's like a...
Now he's taking a dig at you.
I'm seeing this...
Now he's taking a dig at you.
Okay, good. What makes me tick? I think hunger. I think I personally, because I saw some strange failures, I mean, when it was not my thing, now I feel that people say about this fire in the belly thing. So I think that hunger is, and hunger is not necessarily for success or anything, hunger to do something. Hunger to achieve something, or hunger to be and play seriously. I'm a sportsman by heart, so I love, when I get into the sport, I play competitively. So that hunger to kind of do that, I think that is I've realized that I thought about multiple times what is keeping me going, and this is a hunger. I think, but
Wow. Fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks, Amar. Thanks for sharing that. Pallavi.
Thank you. A lot of encouraging words. I
We're
think.
going to give you extra time because you're the only representative from the other side. So you get extra time, Pallavi.
No, that's okay. This time is enough. But I think my journey, so I come from a very humble background. My dad was in bank. And one thing my dad always told me was discipline. And I still remember, I have two brothers here, and he used to often tell three of us, and I still remember that saying, be bold in what you stand for. And I think as a woman, he used to always tell me, no matter you fail, no matter you fall, but again, stand up and be bold in what you do. And I went to a boarding school really early in my age. I was in grade 3, and it was a convent. And imagine now I am in a male-dominated industry, but I used to fear men, honestly. I would never talk to them. And when you're in a convent, I mean, a lot of them, how many from convent? You know, nuns would always tell you, become nun, like men are alien. So, but, you know, so, but then, you know, I was a sports person as well, and I was a national gymnast and a basketball player, so I used to do a lot of stuff outdoor always. Biggest things which have kept me going, and I'm spiritually driven as well. I practice Buddhism. It was, you know, when you're in a corporate world or in family or with friends, three things which my parents and my friends and people I've met, been fortunate to work with some great leaders, great people, is compassion, gratitude, and empathy. I think these three things have really changed the way I think, the way I work, and the way I interact with people. Of course, I'm not perfect, and nobody can. It's an everyday struggle to change yourself, that how can I be better today than I was yesterday? We all want to work, we all want to do great things, we all want to be successful. But by the end of the day, we are all human beings, right? How can we be nice to people around us is something which I keep going back to myself. Every day I write, actually. I have a little diary. I write every day when I come back from office saying, what is it that I didn't do well today? Was I bad to people? I did not speak to the person nicely. Can I actually make it nicer tomorrow? So that's something which, of course, my parents have kind of ingrained in me because of the middle class background and a service background, which has to be fundamentally my ethos in life. Of course, I started my career from motorcycles, from convent coming to motorcycles, and you know, it was often my friends and my principal, who's not alive anymore, and I did meet her when she was passing away. She said, "How come?" And I was like, "I don't know," but it did. So yeah, I mean, it's been great because of three things. Of course, I have two brothers, and they've always been very, very supportive in what I do. I started with Yamaha, which is motorcycles, started riding motorcycles then. Then I went on to Harley-Davidson for 8 years. One thing which I really learned there, and I still often talk about him, my boss, Anup Prakash, who used to be an ex-Marine and an ex-Harvard and an ex-Stanford and a Bush administration. So I learned a lot from him, actually, how empathetic he was, not because I was a woman, but he said, because I see everybody equally. And that time I was, of course, in 5 years of my career, it was very moving for me to work with a leader who did not think that if you're a woman, I will look at you differently and I'll be nicer to you. I'll tell you, you know, why don't you take a chair? And that's what I really liked. I don't like men who try and be extra nice to you because you're a woman. I don't need that attention. We're in 21st century. We're fine with it, right? So, and that kind of, and it's that fundamental shift, which of course, because of his background or the person he was, I learned a lot to be, it's fine if somebody's hard with you. It's fine if somebody gives you a tough time. And I think because of that, I kind of got a thick skin a little. I don't really, I'm a little of a badass. It's fine if you're bad. We can take it. It's
fantastic.
Fine. You know, it's okay. So, and one thing which, of course, one thing which I learned even in my career early on was know your product and your work so well that you can't be ignored. And motorcycles are tough. they're big bikes. I ride a 1800cc motorcycle. It's big, difficult, and I'm tiny, I'm not that tall. But I really made effort that, because you have to talk to your customers, you need to know your product so much. A man may, and I'm not trying to say, it's just subconsciously come that a man can do harder things and a woman have to be little, in a space where you're comfortable. You have to, and I still remember on a Saturday, Sunday, early morning, getting up at 5 o'clock, telling my colleague, I want to learn how to ride bikes. It's a winter or a summer. I made that effort to actually know my product so well that when I'm on a stage or when I'm talking to a customer, he should not feel, oh, she's a girl, she may not know. And that's where I learned that you need to know your product maybe 200 times a little more better than your colleague. It's okay, you may have to put to a little more effort, but you got to put, we don't live in a fair world. It's not a fair world, come what may. It'll take time. It will take time when diversity and people start thinking that it doesn't matter if a man or a woman is there. I'm not trying to get that topic in, but what I'm trying to say is that I think what I learned because of being in a male-dominated industry and working with people, that there are men who will also support you. There are women who may also sometimes bring you down. You have to find your sweet spot, and you have to be intelligent enough to know, I know where my space is. And hold that space, and that's what I did. I kind of holded that space so strongly that I kind of told myself, I have to be so good that I can't be ignored. And we have to, and that's where this whole thing of being successful is. It also comes with telling yourself, even if I fail today, tomorrow I am going to be better than what I was yesterday. And that kind of thing kind of kept me going. But one thing I'll share with you, and I'll not name the organization, is that it often happens when you're in a meeting room and you're sitting, and I shared that with Kanika as well when we met last time, is that when you're in a meeting room, often in a board meeting, your colleague is talking about something very important, everybody is listening so carefully. And when you talk, people tend to go on the mobile. And I often used to think, why do people do that? If I'm saying something, does it not matter? And what I started doing was, even if it meant it's a very important meeting, I walked out of the meeting room. Of course, it takes a lot of courage, but I think your own self-integrity and your self-respect is the most important thing, come what may. And that was also something which my ex-boss, which is Anu, told me that, it's okay, jobs are part of your life, but they don't define you. Your character and your own self-integrity defines you. And that also became very central to who I am today. Failure-wise, I've failed a lot. Yeah, I can't even tell you how many times. But I have one thing I will share in terms of failure, and that's the last one, is that there was a very big campaign when we had to launch the first ever product which was coming for India. And I won't name the product and the company, but, we faltered on actually getting the connection. It was my fault because I assumed that it's easy to get it, but it had to come from a different country. It took some time. And because of that, there was a delay of 2 days, and we lost almost 500 units of sales. And that was something which I learned, that things like this, sometimes you need to take charge. It's good to rely, but important things take charge. That did take a bit of hit on me from various aspects, but I think that was a good learning for me to say that you have to take charge of important topics in your life and not sometimes let go. So, and I'll end with just two things, is that what has helped me is the leaders I've worked with. And one thing which I've always believed in is that hire people who are better than you. Don't hire people who are equal to you or lesser than you in terms of intelligence or competence. So I've always tried to hire people who are better than me so we can be a great team. I think that's something which I've learned early on, so it's been great.
Wow, and that is so important, Pallavi. So fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
Best credibility, which is your friendship. So I think that introduction is good enough.
Thank you.
कारीगर आदमी हूँ, चीज़ें बनाता हूँ, हमेशा बचपन से चीज़ें बनाने का शौक था. So fundamentally, there is no difference between me and anyone in Saharanpur जो मेज़ बना रहे हैं. Can you? Is it okay? तो कारीगर आदमी हूँ, चीज़ें बनाता हूँ, बचपन से शौक था और कुछ कर नहीं सकता हूँ. I can't do anything except build things. There is fundamentally no difference between me and anyone in Saharanpur who is creating furniture. It's still not audible. Is it closer? It will actually touch my lips. More. Okay.
He's got a lovely voice.
Is it clear now? Is it better? So fundamentally, there's no difference between me and a person in Saharanpur who is creating a furniture, or a person in Moradabad who is building great murtis. That's the only introduction I have, and that's the only thing which I can do. I've never taken myself so seriously. Nobody has actually asked me about my success and failure till now. Okay.
But about your journey, tell us about, because I know a little bit of it, and it's so exciting.
No, there's
so I
no
think the
journey.
audience would love to hear that.
There's no journey. There's no journey. So, when I was in school, I used to build things. Okay. And my teacher will say, why you are building things? You have to solve this math problem and all that stuff. But I had a coolest mother, and she will basically say, no, what you want to do. Okay, and she will sit with me, and both of us will build it together. Okay. So I know I've done a lot of mistakes. Koi failure nahi hai bhai. I've done tons of mistakes, no failure. Okay, tons of mistakes. बहुत गलतियां की हैं. जैसे से एज होते जा रही है वैसे वैसे और ज़्यादा गलतियां कर रहा हूँ. But and I will explain my hypothesis why I say that. Success is whenever, and I'm not, apart from whatever Kulmeet has said, I'm not extraordinarily intelligent in any way. Most of my products are built from things which I've observed from others, or people like Kulmeet, they come and they say that, Ravi, ye bana do, paise mil jayenge thode se. So most of the things I've built like that. So my creativity oozes from external source. और ईश्वर ने थोड़ा सा हुनर दे रखा है. So I'm able to build on that. So success and failure, he's a leader, you are a leader. I'm not a leadership material anyways. कारीगर आदमी हूँ, चीज़ें बनाता हूँ.
Such humility.
No, it's not humility. That's a fact. So only sexy thing about me is that I can fly in an aircraft. वो मैं बहुत proudly बोलता हूँ. That's the only thing which is sexy about me.
If I can share with the audience, so Ravi's just flown one of the new aircrafts that Vistara has bought. So he's also a pilot from Chandigarh, landed and come straight for the event. I don't know if I told you he's a rescue pilot. He goes to the Alps once or twice a year. He does rescue missions. He takes classes at the Harvard, also MIT, if I'm not wrong, at least 3 or 4 times a year. So there's a course that's designed for him. I can go on and on. But that's the Karigar Admi that he's talking about.
Yeah, I think you should not be allowed to be humble. Okay, you should not be allowed.
No,
okay,
not.
please. I think we insist that you talk about a bit more. Please.
So I give a lot of talks, and till now nobody has given me this kind of izzat, saying that कि आप बताइए अपने success failure के बारे में. Or they all tell me तुमने ये product बनाया था रवि, अब समझा दो यहाँ पे आकर के ये product क्या है, right? So I'll give you an answer for that. And on a serious note, I'll give you an answer for that. One of the things. So I'm a rescue pilot for Red Cross. One of the changing stories, there are 2 stories which actually changed my point of view whenever I use this word failure. And if you permit me, I'll take a little bit of time and I'll narrate that story. I'll not mention countries, neither I will mention government nor people. It was a similar kind of situation. In one case, there were floods, and in other case, there was earthquake. In each of these cases, I was just a driver whose job was to take a copter at a certain level so that people down below, they can be evacuated. That was my job in both the situations. In both the situation, there were 1 elderly person, 2 young people, 1 pregnant woman, and 1 child. In one case, in both cases, evacuation was successful. In one case, there was an evacuation which had an impact that I was not able to evacuate others because there was a delay in climate. There was a lot of rains, so there was a delay. Usually, after you complete your rescue mission, you reach back to your camp, and apparently you try to, have a glass of water or a warm coffee. It's pretty common that people whom you have evacuated, they meet you after you have evacuated them. In one case, pregnant woman comes to me and she slaps me and she tells me that you have not done a job which you were supposed to do because 2 of my kids are still in that particular village and you were supposed to evacuate them. In other incident, another pregnant woman comes to me and she hugs me and she tries to touch my feet and I'm embarrassed. And she says that, you have at least saved me and you have saved my child and you have saved my father. So I don't know what is failure, quite frankly, because even in both the cases, I did the same job. I was just a glorified driver who went over there, parked a helicopter at a certain height, and did my job, and I came back. So I don't know that. I'm not intelligent enough to even say that. And this is not with humility. This is based upon whatever little intellect and whatever I have gained as a traveler and as this thing. Success is different. When I was young, I built a cross compiler. My only and whole motivation was greed, is to make money, as much money I can make. And I kind of made quite a wealth at an age when I actually wrote that cross compiler. I don't know how many of our computer science engineers over there. That was an era where Microsoft and Intel were coming up, and HP 9000 and mainframes used to be the one. And they will not talk to each other, and they will definitely not talk to the Intel environment. So I basically, in a very simple way, actually wrote a code that you can actually, all these 3 can talk to each other, and I made tons of money. Maybe that was the need, but the idea was that somebody, a very cool investor came to me and he said that, Ravi, if you are able to do that, then you can make tons of money. So that was my success, and that success was totally governed by greed. I crave for 2 other successes, and both these successes, I have not arrived at that state of success, but I exactly know how to define that particular success. First, I want to change the definition of employment in India. I can't bear this particular fact we glorify services industry in India, where 19-year-old kid, whether female or male, they key in whether they are in bank or whether they are in airport or whether they are in airline or whether they are in healthcare industry. They key in 4 or 5 keys again and again and again just to gain bread and butter and to pay rent for their house. I don't think that should be the definition of employment. I think definition of employment should be where you use your brain, and if this is the definition of employment, then by this kid, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid, they will actually reach an age of 34 or 35. They will get only 2 things. One is an arthritis in right or left hand and a muscle memory. So I'm striving to bring that particular change. And I need, and I pray, because I don't have a courage, and that's why I'm not a leadership material, and I'm saying with no humility, I know that I am incapable to become an entrepreneur. So anyone who is an entrepreneur over here, male or female, please do mass entrepreneurship. Create more entrepreneurs, create more jobs, because that's what this country requires. That's one. So I'm just trying to pass on this particular message, and if just by hearing me or just by some of my products, if they can actually create jobs, that would be my first success by changing the definition of employment. Second thing, which I hope this country will gain soon, is direct democracy. That means every citizen, their definition of democracy will not be the vote which they cast, but they should have a voice, and that voice should be recorded during the tenure of that particular government, and irrespective whether the policies or manifesto of that government retains or believes in that particular voice, but that voice should be retained, and that voice should be heard, even if it is a voice of one person, and one person can also be called as a minority. Both these aspects can be done by platforms and tech platforms. Both these are, this I can proudly say, both these are my patents. They are getting into a product zone, and hopefully when they will become product, then I can say that, you know, this would be my success, first success.
How lovely. How lovely. Kudos to that. Seriously. It's very nice. So look at the diverse views, right? Something coming out of a marketer, something coming out of a general manager, and something with a tech flavor, a lot of productization, a lot of patents, but fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. So let me move on very quickly. We finished 20 minutes. We've got another 20 minutes left. Just to let people know, I have a couple of more questions. So Amar, to you, right? So you've built, like we said, OLX from the scratch. You've now built or are building Spotify. So here's a question, and I'm guessing there are a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small and medium businesses in the room, or people who are wanting to get into entrepreneurship, like Ravi says. So what's the mantra? What's been your success? How do you scale an organization from inception? How do you take it to something big? And I know it's not easy, and that too, you take it, make it one of the hallmarks, which you've done both the times, right? So what's the secret of your success?
So I think, first of all, a little bit success that I had has been kind of just been taken up, because I think the humility that Ravi has showed, I think is phenomenal, Ravi. I think really hats off to you, man. The kind of work that you've been doing. So I think I feel that personally, as I look back, I think the success that I have seen, I think is mostly, which we don't normally talk a lot, but I think it's been a lot of luck factor there. I think I've probably been in the right place, right time. And if I've seen the same person, I've seen failures, and I think success, then I should basically attribute it to that. But I think let's probably analyze what has worked, and I think that maybe just keeping that aside, I don't think there are certain formulas, like I said, out there. So what I have learned during, and I've also built, by the way, I'm not a true entrepreneur. I built at OLX also. It was a startup coming out of Argentina. A lot of people think I'm the founder and CEO of OLX. People used to actually respect me within the whole group. It was part of the large group. I used to consider myself as founder because I think I'm an entrepreneur within a company. So that's the way I operate, but I don't think I've built a company. And I think probably the same thing that you mentioned, Ravi. I think I'm kind of feel that a lot of courageous people out there who have built their own companies. I think I've taken a business. I think I've taken it, maybe I've been lucky to take it big, but I've actually not built on my own business as of now. But I think what I've seen as success from building from scratch to maybe a larger organization, I think the biggest thing is that you need to be able to, because it's a very competitive area. This country is extremely competitive. From whatever you want to do, there are 10 people doing the same thing. Or if you want to do something today, somebody will copy. The second thing, or unique thing about this market is that the market is not mature for many things. So you think that the market is ready. We bring these foreign concepts, international concepts, and we say we'll bring it here and people will just, use that product. No, I think there's a lot of education. So I think depending on, I may not have a formula for all kinds of businesses. I can tell you what worked for me. In OLX, I think when I started OLX, there were literally nobody used to buy and sell as individuals. People were buying and selling maybe in cars or something, but they were never selling their own furniture or a cycle or something. There was no place for that. We would generally give it away for free or just keep it, gathering dust at house or something. So I think the whole concept was how to educate people about that. I think I chose the marketing route. So I'm actually might have run whatever general business from all angles, but I'm marketer at heart. So just like we mentioned out here. So I think the whole concept, if you remember the thing called Beach Day, OLX Pe Beach Day. So I think that whole thing of coming up with how to get people to relate to something that they can do. So getting creatively solving a problem through maybe a marketing route when the product maybe a commodity or product maybe people don't understand was something I learned. And today, in Spotify also, if you look at it, Spotify is a huge company globally with 250 million users almost. But in India, we are among the 10, 12 people who are doing it. So we come late into the market. So we are saying how to differentiate in the market. So marketing is an area I think we're differentiating. So the Anil Kapoor ads that you've seen recently, the the Sunteja campaigns and whatever you're running. So I think the thought process is there. Second, I think is I am a big believer in data driven decision making. So at some point in time, I've done a lot of sales in my life. I used to be very intuitive and gut feel oriented, but I've realized that if you're trying to run a larger business and consumer, then you need to pick up data and rely on data, not on your intuition completely. Today, I rely on both combination because you have kind of like the muscle memory. You have seen some situations over the last 15, 20 years. So you know there is something which works, but I normally don't go in unless I see data. I don't go after anything purely
So
based
if you
on
were to choose between the gut and data, what would you choose?
I will always choose data first.
Okay, fine.
First
Not
data,
the gut. So you left the gut far
gut
away.
I would choose for my own personal, some kind of a frivolous thing, but not for when I'm risking money or risking a resource or I'm kind of doing this.
Okay,
Yeah.
got
But I think just to give some people say a man is better or a machine is better. There's something is better. I think the best solution is that a man with a machine is always better than either a man or either a machine. So in a way, the same way.
As long as it's not a machine gun, right? The world I come from, somewhere in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. So the third thing exactly. So the third thing which I think I can talk about, which I think is when you build a business out there is patience and perseverance, which I think I mentioned earlier. I think things will not move instantly. At OLX, I think it took me 9 years to bring the business to what it is. The first few years, I think I look back and I say, I think I literally wasted. But then I think it was probably the patience, understanding. When you get into the right, there'll be a time when you move into the zone. In sports, I think, luckily we have better sportsmen here than what I thought I was. In sportsmen, it's called the zone of your play. It's called the zone. When you start playing, and if you've seen any kind of sports, whether it's from cricket to something, you'll see a particular time when the batsman or the tennis player or the athlete is in their zone. So you will get your moment in that zone. But it takes you to get there through preparation and all that. But once you get into your zone, you should not let go of your momentum. So the third thing which I believe a lot is actually getting into the momentum, getting into that zone, and once you get into the momentum, then don't kind of get off the horse. Then you ride as high, as fast as possible, because you don't know when you lose the momentum again. Because you are not, the competition might come in, something might go wrong, you might again fail somewhere. So ride the momentum as much as you can. I think that's a scale-up piece out there. I think the third thing, maybe another piece I can tell you about scaling up is that you will always, I think somebody in an ambiguous, volatile environment, you sometimes even don't know what is the best path out there. So I think finding through data, finding through existing, finding through test. The other thing which we call it, I think in technology, we call it the A-B testing. A-B testing is about that you have to continuously improve incrementally. So believe in a continuous improvement, but test something. An A-B test is about you basically take a thing, you give one set of users, or maybe the control group, a certain solution, and the rest of them a certain solution, and test one which works better. I mean, it's a very basic way of explaining, but it's much more detailed. But by knowing that, you know what scales, what kind of succeeds. Because when you have to take initiatives, you have to choose among many options, and the data will throw you many options. You don't know which one would be the best one to scale up. So through data and through A-B testing or through learning and testing, you find the most scalable one, the one which you will big. And after that, the last one I would say is, it's all about focus. So I have been, like I told you, if I had probably focused earlier in my life enough, I would have also been a national level sportsman. I had all the ingredients. But I took 10 sports and I became pretty good in 10, but I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. So the question is, how do you kind of focus? Because in the end of it, if you focus hard enough, then you can win through one big initiative or one big area, just become the best in that. At OLX, we chose that, okay, if you can become the best place to sell your stuff, this is a promise you go down to the consumers with that, and this is what you deliver with the product, then you don't care everything else. If you keep doing that very well over a period of time, then it's done. Then even if you do 100 more initiatives, and my competition that time tried many things out there, but that one thing just changed the whole, because you continuously, relentlessly executed on one part. It became boring after some time, but it needed that kind of a focus. Yeah.
The book, Amar.
The book.
We need you to write that book with all of this. Okay, so quickly, my next question to Pallavi. So Pallavi, you're a marketer at heart, and so, what's the impact that digital and digital marketing is having in your world today? How do the buzzwords, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, what impact is that making in a marketer's world? I picked that up from his A/B testing and when he was trying to explain us the control group.
Yeah, I think ML, AI,
Blockchain.
blockchain, all of these aspects have become part of not just marketers' life, but it's something which is important for every business enterprise. So I'll just give you an example. In my previous role, when we were launching a new product and everything from scratch, didn't have any legacy systems, and often enterprises fail because there are so many legacy systems which need to be changed, and there is something called IT, which phenomenally controls a lot of aspects, and then marketing sometimes have to depend on a lot of aspects. But I think I'm just going back to the example. For the first time, I think in automotive, and automotive still has a long way to go when it comes to adapting to new ways of selling, like what Amar was just explaining from OLX, what OLX did, and I think that was phenomenal to change how people thought of buying or selling. What we did was we said we will first, for the first time, will not open bookings of car, which is very important, vehicle to buy for yourself or family, was to just do online buying of products. And this, a lot of brands have done in the past, but a brand which has never been known, and people often said, oh my God, we don't even know. I'm not naming the brand, but I'm just saying. So MG, I mean, a lot of people would know Hector. Anybody knows Hector? MG Hector? Oh, great, nice. Okay, some few people. Oh, that's not good, but it's okay. So,
They all know BMW now.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to give an example, is that, and that was only built on the aspect of how we looked at consumer behavior and A/B testing, what you just mentioned. I think so many used cases, because so many customers are different. I'm so different from Kulmeet. Kulmeet is so different from Amar, and all of us are so different individuals that we were able to actually, what digital is doing for us today is actually helping us personify our customer in a better way, do better targeting and personalization, which is very basic to any business today. Without that, we can't succeed, because we live in such a crowded world. Everybody's so busy. How do we tell our customer why are we better than any other product? And that's the case with BMW as well. I think for luxury brands, no matter what digital we use or what platform we use, human interaction is so important. And I'll give you an example. If you walk into an Oberoi or you walk into a Taj, there is one difference, which is you can just feel it. Can anybody tell me what that difference could be? Think. When you walk into an Oberoi and you walk into a Taj, there is this one thing you can sense across all Oberois and all Taj.
The courtesy and the people touch. No? What else?
The smell. Very basic. The smell. The fragrance actually. When you enter the Oberoi or you enter a Taj, there is a particular smell and a music which is always at the same tempo. It's a very fundamental small thing. But I think by the end of the day, like I said previously as well, and which is what we've learned over a period of time as marketers, that you have, what we are trying to I'm also trying to learn, is that ML, AI, and HI, I think HI is so important no matter what. Today you walk into a Porsche showroom or an Audi showroom or a BMW showroom, the first person you meet is actually the guard who opens the door for you. And if that guard is smiling, it just changes your whole perspective when you walk into the showroom. Half of your, your guard is down. You're like, oh my God, your smile can change so many things. So that's where I think digital is so important to actually get your customer to get attention. That's what we've been working on. But by the end of the day, when you're buying a high indulgence product, the human interaction of just knowing that, sir, how was your day? Welcome to BMW. I'm going to give you a great drive. Changes everything. Instead of saying, hi, sir, I know which car do you want to buy. This is the spec. You know what I'm saying, right? Everything, the combination of AI, ML, and HI is what marketing is, and which is what we are also learning at this point. Only then marketing will be successful. And I truly say marketers are not about making great ads. We are true salespeople. And if marketing does not become a sales channel, then marketing will fail over a period of time. I mean, I think making great ads will not survive any purpose. And that's what I am also trying to tell myself. Most marketers and myself, I said, we won't be required over 10 years if we don't actually personalize, if we don't think that we are actually filling the funnel, we are driving conversions, we are driving people to think, I want to own this product vis-a-vis this product. Then to say, oh my God, I made a great ad. Who cares? People forget. Spotify will play great music. I will forget what ad did you make. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's where I feel that ML, AI, but HI is so critical to make your business successful.
Wow, that's so cool. I coined a word called screenagers several years ago when I was at Adobe. So you had all the different generations. And then one day in some forum I said, screenagers, because we have those kids of ours that get up and the first thing they look at is the screen. So we've now got HI. I don't know if you're going to patent it or is it already patented by someone, Pallavi? Okay. So quickly, a quick question to Ravi. So Ravi, taking off from the AI, ML, from a marketeer standpoint, what do you think is the impact of technology on leadership? Artificial intelligence coming in, does it mean that Amar gets negated and is no longer required for his next build-up?
Of course he is.
Okay, so give us an insight into that.
I didn't finish the statement. Look, take from a leadership perspective.
Yep.
Most leaders are struggling, and they will continue to struggle between privacy and responsibility. While their charter will be to ensure that privacy is strengthened, responsibility will test their leadership skills. That's one. Second thing, they will struggle between localization versus globalization, because platforms are reality now, and that will seriously test their strategy, their leadership strategy of localization versus globalization. It is already happening. It has tested at least top 5 biggest companies in the world, and it will percolate down and it will continue to test that. That's the second one. Third thing, ability to diagnose and do forensics of any kind of corruption, would seriously test existing corporate governance. It will not be that easy that you call few people and you listen to them and then you agree or disagree. So the hierarchical and committee structure of leadership when it comes to corporate governance will be tested. Fourth one, which is a difficult one, I think it will happen. I may be wrong, but I think I'm quite bullish it will happen. And that would be the biggest test of a leadership. Morality will be strongly tested. Morality of, at least in next decade, because I don't see average age of a leader being reduced to 22 years in next 12 years. I don't see that happening. And since I don't see that happening, their inherent morality to pass judgment, to trust, to create processes, to create teams, will be put to test like it has never been put to test ever. That would be the impact of tech.
That's fantastic, yeah. Okay, so we've actually come to the end. So my one last question, Harveen, before you kick us off stage. And imagine you wanted 5 people, right? This is 3 leaders. I told you it's an intense panel, right? Okay, so on the lighter side, and to each of you, right? So what is it that you do to unwind? How do you maintain the work-life balance? How do you, I know some of us are in high-pressure jobs. The pace at which things move today is crazy, right? Amar, Pallavi. So what is it that you do? If we could share that, and then we could close this for
I think listen to music.
That you don't have a choice. You were talking to me about
that's
Floyd
number
and
one.
Vistara.
That's number one. Listen to podcast. number 2. And by the way, you should, because I think I used to love music, but I think now I'm part of, I'm looking at exploring music because looking at different types of music in this country, around the world. We just had a wrapped kind of a thing for Spotify globally where you could kind of look at all the songs that you had been listening to all through the year. And I had such a diverse kind of a mix. So that's one thing that I definitely do, and I would encourage everybody to do on Spotify.
Can I just butt in? So the last 10 posts that you've shared on Insta or Facebook have been with some of the biggest Bollywood stars, right? So that's the area that Amar's getting into these days.
No. So that's these guys are all artists who sometimes you get a chance to meet. They come to the office sometimes, so I've been very lucky to generally interact with them. But yeah, that's not the pastime that we're talking about. But yeah, I think the other thing which I love is to unwind is to basically. I think I like sports still. Unfortunately, this has not been the year where I've played a lot of sports. I'm a squash player now. After all the sports, I picked squash.
What's the secret of your fitness, Amar?
I just follow.
While I know
I
you
just follow Kulmeet.
While I know you compete with me,
I just follow Kulmeet.
Competing with me, right? Who's fitter? But
no, I just follow Kulmeet. But I am. Perception is always different from reality. So I might look fit, but I'm not maybe as fit. Okay, but that's, so I think I love to read, like I said. So read is a very way for me to kind of just wind and keep my mind learning new things, picking up something. I like to spend time, with my family. So in fact, nowadays I do 10-kilometer walks with my wife in the evening sometimes. It's good fun actually, because then you get a chance to talk, which you normally would do. And so these are a few things that you do out, and I think you just keep your kind of a time allocated towards family, work, and a bit of health. Because I think one thing which people don't sometimes realize it, I think I just asked a lot of people in my team in the previous time, is what is the most important thing in life? And I think, like I was mentioning, people say, oh, it's money. I think it's like this thing. I said, I think the number one most important thing in life is health. Okay, so if you don't have health, you will not do anything out there.
Wow.
So that's the first thing, because if you don't look after your health, you can't do anything else. So what is the next most important thing in life? So people then come to, achievement, this and that. I said, second most thing is family. So if you don't have, the family, all that fun that you have, money or whatever is, you won't really enjoy it. You'll be alone in life. You'll not do it. So next, after health comes this thing. What is the third most important thing? Again, it's not money. It's actually work satisfaction. So because if you have the money, but you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's worthless. So what you should do is you should work, and that's why people say this, follow your passion. It's very difficult to do it at a young age, actually. Be very frank, I tell my kids the same thing. And I personally realize it's very difficult to follow the passion at a young age because you don't know what your passions are. It's only when you get into the wrong job or you end up wasting your life in something else, then you realize that I was passionate.
Not for me,
yeah, then you realize I was passionate about this. And it happened with me personally. I spent a lot of my time doing something else, but I was passionate about something else. So I think passion comes to you late. Passion but you're very lucky to be able to follow passion very young. I think the only people who are able to follow their passion very young are some of these people who are amazingly great at 20s, the stars of sports or music or what, because they are following that literally, and they're really good, become great in that. And I think the last thing I do is actually, I think I covered all these points. I think which I wanted to say.
You did well, Amar. The book. Pallavi, over to you.
So I think work-life balance and having some fun is important, right? By the end of the day, I don't know how long are we going to live with whatever we are right now facing. So it's important to really get out there and have fun. So I actually got my husband into motorcycling. He never used to ride. So we both ride a lot of bikes on Sundays, and we have a little group. So we try and ride motorcycles and feel a little bit of wind in the hair with helmet, of course. That's something we both like doing. Second, of course, I love to binge watch Netflix. I think most of us do. And one thing which I would tell all women to actually see, I'm sure some. So I'm really inspired by Elizabeth McCord. If anybody's seen Madam Secretary on Netflix, she's such a power woman. And when you see, I'm like next day so charged. I was like, I want to be like her. I think it's something which all women should see, if not seen. Third, for me, of course, I'm spiritually very driven, so I practice Buddhism, and that's something which keeps me going. Fourth, for me, is just little small things. For me, is just spend some time with myself. I tend to go out and have a cup of coffee every Saturday evening or a Sunday morning. It just kind of gets me going. I'm a big believer of work hard, party harder. Simple. I mean, I think it's so important sometimes to just let go because we are just so much into work, this, that. And I often tell that to my teams as well, that work is very important, but it's not everything in your life. And I tell myself that most times than anybody else. So I think for me, the greatest fun is to get my bike outside, rumble a little, and have some good time. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. Lovely.
I don't know. Is work-life balance.
How do you chill? Okay, tell us.
Chill means I work. Yeah,
that was my point. He does another rescue mission or something.
Yeah, no, I do. So there's one difference. Okay, I have, bachpan se, nobody is capable of making me do things which I don't want to do. Okay, तो कभी ऐसा काम किया ही नहीं है, गलतियां, success, whatever, कभी भी ऐसा कुछ नहीं किया है. I have never done anything which I didn't wanted to do. Okay.
And I see that at your workplace. I visited your workplace a few times.
Yeah.
He refuses. CEO, no CEO, wherever it's coming down from, it's Ravi's way.
Yeah, right? No, it's not my. It's like one life here. No, it's not like. It's just one life. Okay, it's one life. So, so what do I do? Okay, so about 10 odd years back, झूठ बोलना बंद कर दिया था. I stopped lying. Okay, and one of the reasons I stopped lying was that, it was becoming very difficult to remember the last lie. Oh, okay. And then I started giving talks. So then publicly you have lied at some place, then you have to make sure कि you create this database and all the stuff of lies कि ये Spain में ये lie बोला था. So this is one thing which I have done, which gives me enormous amount of time. When I get when I'm frustrated in doing things which I want to do, I fly. उसके भी पैसे मिल जाते हैं.
Back to his money making.
Okay. When I am bored with both these things, then I climb mountains. That's all I do. Pretty much.
Wow. The humility in that also.
Kulmeet, I think we should hear your. I think you've been asking us questions, yeah. So all the questions that you ask us, all the questions that you ask us, can you just give us a snapshot of all the answers from your side?
Harbeen's ringing the bell. Harbeen's ringing the bell.
Maybe not here.
I just want to thank you all. Really, it's been. Am I audible?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I just want to thank all of you. It's been such an incredible panel. I'll just come in at the end before I just, like you said, ask Kulmeet for his, what makes you tick.
What makes me tick?
Yeah.
A lot. So I'm high on life. Okay. So quickly, the journey in a snapshot. I won't take as long as them. We don't have the time. I left home at 16. I joined the National Defense Academy, went to the military academy, joined the armed forces, joined something called the cavalry, spent 12 years in the armored corps. I've had a great time, right, all my life. Have always been on a high. Quit when I was, couldn't quit actually. So it took me about a year to get out. prematurely just cleared my staff college, etc., etc., etc. Decided that I wanted to move on. I wanted another life. I need several lives in one lifetime. That's the philosophy with which I live. Came out to the corporate world, wanted to head a multinational in 10 years. I took 10 and a half. I think I messed up a little there, but it was fun. So I've been with the Microsoft, Sun Microsystem, Adobe now for about 7.5 years. That was chapter 2 as per me. Chapter 3 has started about 6 months ago, like Harbeen initially mentioned. So I've now moved into the startup world. I've relocated to Singapore. How do you build a Microsoft? How do you build an Adobe? So that's what keeps me awake today. What are the challenges? And somebody must have done it at some point in time, right? So that's what I'm trying to solve with a global role with one of the fastest growing marketing automation companies globally called Resultix, the tick that Amar keeps prodding me on. Yeah, the tick in the box. So that's me, 30 years from the time I joined. So chapter 3 of my life. Let's see how many more chapters. Harbeen, back to you.
Thank you, Kulmeet. And Amar, what you said, I literally got this panel done by the philosophy you mentioned, the PPK philosophy. Piche pe ke main ek karaya.
Come on, don't say that. You're breaking my heart. Don't say that.
No, in a good way, in a good way. I persevered.
There were like 3 WhatsApps. Are you down from Singapore? Can you do this? And I had 1 WhatsApp each to them. All of them said yes.
I know, I'm proud that I persevered, and I'm very grateful that you responded and did this. I want to just thank each one of you for referring to people who support you. So you mentioned you work-life balance for you. Take a walk with your wife, you get to share so much more. Pallavi, you shared, you persuaded your better half to learn how to ride the bike and enjoy it too, so that. And Ravi, you mentioned about having a very cool mother who just let you be, which is so, so important. And Kulmeet, I want to honor the 3 women who support you, Tinu, Jasreen, and Harveen. So I don't know if they are there in the room, but they're incredible women. Tinu, your wife, and your amazing 2 daughters. So I think we are in the midst of very balanced leadership. With the HQ and AQ or whatever Q is very balanced here. Really, really very grateful for this wonderful session.
Thank you, Harbeen, and thank you, Vinay, once again. Thanks a lot.
And in recognition of the stalwarts that are amongst us, we'd like to felicitate them with tokens of our gratitude. Yes. Kulmeet, I invite you to please accompany Harbeen in giving away the honors. Inviting Ravinder Pal Singh to accept this honor as an exceptional leader of excellence on behalf of the Women Economic Forum at the All Ladies Meet, Gurugram 2019. Amarjeet Singh Batra. We recognize and salute the work you do and the man you are. Calling upon Pallavi Singh and acknowledging her as an exceptional woman of excellence at the Women Economic